Welcome to part 3 of the Ultimate Exchange. My name is Neil White. I'm joined today by my co-host Richard Stone and my two excellent guests, Elisa Castro and David Barker. Today we're talking about our third topic, production, having already covered people and process, and how that is around helping our clients improve quality, production output, and compliance as well.
Many facilities have many products, even thousands of products, and they can run down different routes for different machines, and effectively they all consume different components, and this on its own causes real issues for some companies. We still see, we talked earlier, a lot of this is written down on paper. It could be goods inwards, write it in. That's not the same for everybody, but this variance causes real issues. And if you don't know where the variances actually happen and what's going on, how do you actually control your quality and compliance? Because we don't get it right, our customers are not going to be very happy. And using digital technology allows us to do this.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, say in a power plant, let's say it's a coal-fired power plant, the quality of the coal coming in is going to heavily impact on your heat rate and how you're going to, what you can produce from the boiler, basically. So being able to measure that, and you've got your LIMS data and other information that's, looking at moisture and so on. So being able to see that in real time and making decisions on what you can offer into the market, because that coal quality ultimately impacts your megawatts, which impacts what you're putting in the market. So that's another example of, how we can bring it all together, make those quick decisions and make it visual.
I saw another case of that. This was in the food industry, and dreaded sugar, but we do use sugar, and those raw sugar content as it come in is not consistent. Mm-hmm. So if you're trying to formulate a drink, and then you go and take it to labs and test it, and you've not got it right, you've got to reformulate again. The consequence, and we talked about this earlier, is processes. Yeah. You've got downstream packaging lines, and they've stopped. They're not running. And that whole thing leads to problems. And ultimately, you could be putting products out into the market that aren't meeting the right quality. Mm.
Correct. So it's more about as well knowing when this is happening so that you can catch it on time, and then you don't have issues with your compliance or with your quality control, because you are trying to address the problems within the batch, let's say, the process that you are running, right? So nowadays, more and more, we are seeing customers that are using a lot of predictive analytics tools to address these situations, so that you can actually collect all this data that is coming in real time and do projections of, how this is going to look like in an hour or 2 hours based on information that you already have from previous batches or previous products that you have within the line. So
does that mean then we could look ahead and go based on previous information? We think something's going to go wrong.
Exactly. And it's important to mention that we are not saying that we have all the tools, right? Mm-hmm. But the point being that if you have the need to have predictive analytics tools, etc., to do a specific analysis, having that interconnectivity is critical. Having the ability to interconnect with the different systems that you have.
Yes, I know one of the things we talked about the last time we met, that AI is here. And if I go back to AI that's been used for a long while, would be vision systems. Mm-hmm. I know it's not called your product, but you showed us the demo and the systems where you can actually incorporate this.
Yeah, absolutely. So vision systems, and it's just a whole lot of different ML models these days, isn't there, that you can bring together. And as Elisa said, we don't claim to have it all. We leverage those that do, and often it's REST APIs and different ways of pushing and pulling data. So and again, you've got to make it actionable and really visible to the operators who can make that decision. But just coming back to things like SQC, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, it's interesting how we talked about batches and how they may be changing, the variance over time, or whether it's the coal quality or gas quality and so on. So being able to use SQC to help make that visual and see how things are changing over time. I assume you're seeing SQC in your sort of manufacturing space?
We do. Say it's been around for a while, but being able to live on, we mentioned earlier, the Viva Pi information and how to fill that into real-time data and build those one place to see the whole truth is really, really important in this. And the other one we talked about is raw materials and how raw materials might affect this and the supply of them. And being able to connect to other systems, whether it's SAP, whether it's other ERP solutions or LIMS systems, is really, really important around this area. I'll give you an example. It's a food company, canned food, peas, they're meant to be green. Well, weren't careful, they came out yellow. It's a simple process, simple quality procedures. And this is where these solutions can actually bring down and eliminate those sort of errors.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, if I could just try and give just one example from my working life, you talked around sort of production outputs and sometimes that disconnect. We talked around it in other topics as well between sort of business and the OT side. Most clients will always want a production increase at some point in time, but if you've got issues at your production side in terms of scrappage and wastage and poor quality, then you've got that direct disconnect within the business, which has major issues. So, you know, tool sets like Dimension software in terms of that single pane of glass, clear reporting, alarm management and so forth, starts to bring that together as more of a unity within the organization. So you can address those problems earlier. So when, you know, the business is saying, well, we need to increase production by, you know, 5 or 7% or whatever the case may be, you know, there's an adult conversation about, right, how do we achieve that? Right, okay, we've got problems here that we need to address, whether in terms of the process or the supply chain. Right, we've got now the data, and you know where we've got the information at our fingertips across the organisation to make those decisions. Say, right, how do we overcome these problems as a collective? So I think it's really important.
And you see this as well. There's lorries waiting outside. You've got to fulfil the fulfilment. And the tendency could be, turn up the volume, make the line go faster. Usually results in poor quality. And taking on your own point that if we've got predictive analytics, you could start to see if that was having a real impact, and they say, actually, this is not the right thing to do.
Absolutely.
So it's interesting in the power industry, you know, we're starting to see power generation units that are cycling from, you know, cold starts to starting up a unit just to meet some sort of short-term demand, and then they stop the unit. And so you're going from, you know, cold to hot and cold to hot and so forth. And yeah, the impact that has, right? So clearly, yeah, thermal dynamics are going to have an impact and ultimately in the asset life, you know, whether it's transformer or the actual turbine itself. So yeah, you can follow a market, you can hit production and get some, you know, short-term revenues and so on, but to the long-term, potentially the long-term detriment of that asset health.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hopefully it's clear data, real-time data connectivity, one place of information really does help our clients solve their quality and compliance problems.
For sure.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Thank you for joining part 3, where we discussed production and our ultimate exchange session. Hopefully you found it fascinating and interesting. Please join us next time for part 4 about culture. Remember to share, like, and join us next time. Thank you very much.